An unassuming woman called Rachel Carter faced brutal public embarrassment when she was doused with cola and pushed toward the doors of Pinnacle Marketing Solutions in central Chicago. Her soft pleas were overwhelmed by the mocking voices of her heartless co-workers until her wealthy spouse Nathan Pierce showed up to destroy their lives completely. That Friday evening, the workplace, a shining prison of metal and glass, exploded into pandemonium when Jessica Hayes, a toxic account executive, threw a Coke can at Rachel, drenching her charcoal sweater and splashing across her workspace. "Oops! Figured you could use a shower. White trash!" Jessica yelled as Mark Reynolds knocked Rachel's seat, almost causing her to fall. Lauren Kim cackled while recording the attack on her device, calling out, "This is perfect! Wave goodbye to your self-respect, pathetic loser." Rachel staggered, her beautiful face burning with humiliation. Still, a spark flickered in her gaze, a hidden truth so devastating it would silence them forever. What was her true identity? What force was preparing to unleash its power? To her colleagues, she seemed like a misfit, a stranger who had accidentally wandered into a high-pressure marketing company where luxury footwear and custom-fitted jackets served as the unofficial dress code. The harassment began subtly, as these things typically do. Jessica Hayes, a cutting account executive known for her love of designer purses, bent over Rachel's workstation during the early meeting and sneered, "Cute pullover, Ra. Did you steal it from your grandmother's wardrobe?" Several quiet laughs echoed across the space. Rachel's face reddened, yet she managed a tiny grin and focused on her writing pad. She didn't explain that the sweater was cozy, useful, or that she had no interest in flashy clothing. Her only desire was to complete her assignments, data interpretation, her peaceful area of knowledge, and return home. However, Jessica wasn't finished. By midday, she had gathered her group: Mark Reynolds, an arrogant sales representative with slicked hair, and Lauren Kim, a junior artist obsessed with social media fame. The trio lingered around Rachel's workspace, pretending to review a client proposal while hurling insults in her direction. "Listen, Rachel," Mark shouted loudly enough for half the department to notice. "Did you ride public transport again today? I'm certain I spotted someone identical to you asking for money outside." Lauren snickered, quickly photographing Rachel's weathered handbag while whispering, #secondhand fashion. Rachel's typing stopped momentarily. She felt warmth rising up her throat, but she pressed her lips together and remained quiet. She wasn't there to argue. She enjoyed her profession, analyzing data, discovering trends, bringing order to disorder. This was her motivation for accepting this position, despite recognizing she didn't match the refined, ruthless atmosphere of Pinnacle. She didn't require their acceptance, she reminded herself. She simply needed to survive the workday. The harassment had continued for months, beginning 6 weeks after she graduated from college. Initially, it was understated, eye-rolling when she brought homemade meals, gossip about her inexpensive attire. But recently, it had intensified. The previous week, Jessica had accidentally knocked over coffee onto Rachel's workspace, destroying a pile of documents she had spent hours organizing. Mark had chuckled and remarked, "Whoops, looks like you'll need to begin again, Cinderella." Lauren had shared a mysterious post that evening. Some individuals don't understand their position in office culture. Rachel recognized it referred to her. She had witnessed the approval notifications accumulating from fellow employees. Today, however, was different. It was more severe. The three had been scheming all week, their murmurs and knowing looks becoming more aggressive. By late afternoon, they made their move. Jessica walked over carrying a pile of documents and dropped them onto Rachel's desk with a loud crash. "Here's some meaningless tasks for you," she declared, her tone filled with artificial kindness. "We have an important presentation tomorrow, and you're obviously not handling anything significant." Rachel examined the materials. Random printouts, old spreadsheets, nothing pressing. It was a display of dominance, nothing more. "I have my own due dates," Rachel responded quietly, moving the documents away. Her tone was controlled, but internally her stomach churned. She despised conflict, despised how they distorted her statements. Jessica's expression hardened. "Oh, please. Don't pretend you're superior to it. Everyone understands you're just here to occupy space. What's your story anyway? No companions, no fashion sense, no courage? Did you actually attend university? Or did they just pity you?" Mark interrupted, resting against a nearby workspace. "Absolutely. Seriously, Rachel. You're like the office pity case. I bet you reside in some grimy cellar with 5 housemates." The mockery expanded, with several other employees lifting their heads from their desks to observe the performance. Rachel's hands shook slightly, but she pressed them together beneath her desk. She wouldn't allow them the pleasure of witnessing her breakdown. Lauren retrieved her device again, this time filming a brief clip. "Greet my audience, Rachel. They're eager to learn what it's like working with someone who purchases from discount stores." She focused on Rachel's shoes, laughing as she uploaded it with a caption Rachel didn't need to read to understand. The space seemed smaller, the atmosphere heavier. Rachel's pulse quickened, but she maintained a neutral expression, her stunning brown eyes focused on her monitor. She was breathtaking. Sharp facial bones, flowing dark hair kept in a basic ponytail, but she minimized it all with her simple clothing and reserved manner. She didn't desire attention, she didn't require it. Her attractiveness belonged to her, not to them. Then the ultimate insult arrived. Brian Foster, the department supervisor, walked past with an arrogant smile on his face. He had never cared for Rachel either. She was too skilled, too modest, a challenge to his delicate pride. "Listen, Carter," he snapped. "If you're not contributing, perhaps you should leave early. We don't require dead weight holding us back." He threw a wrinkled note at her workspace with "Improve your performance" written on it. The others burst into laughter, Jessica applauding as if it were the highlight of the year. Rachel rose, her action measured and purposeful. "I'll complete my assignments," she declared, her voice barely audible. "I consistently do." She took her bag and walked toward the break area, requiring a moment to catch her breath. Behind her, she heard Mark shout, "Yeah, go weep elsewhere, Your Majesty." The comments hurt, but she continued walking, keeping her head raised. In the break area, she rested against the surface, gripping her device. Her hands trembled as she found Nathan's contact. She didn't want to disturb him. He was constantly occupied managing Pierce Enterprises, a vast corporation that controlled everything from technology to property. Nathan Pierce was a recognized name throughout Chicago. A self-made millionaire, board chairman at Pinnacle's parent organization, and among the most influential individuals in the Midwest. But to Rachel, he was simply Nate, her spouse of 3 years, the man who had asked for her hand in marriage in a quiet garden with a ring he had created personally. She had never mentioned him to her co-workers, not from embarrassment, but from modesty. She wanted to deserve her position, not benefit from his success. They had met in university before his empire flourished, when he was merely an ambitious person with grand aspirations, and she was a reserved mathematics student who helped him with statistics. Their ceremony had been intimate, private, with only relatives and close friends present. She continued using her birth name at work to keep matters uncomplicated. Nathan honored her decision, even though he occasionally teased her about being too independent for her own benefit. Now, though, she needed his support, not for vengeance, but for courage. She called his number, her finger pausing over the dial button. He answered immediately. "Ra, are you all right?" His tone was deep, comforting, a rescue line in the tempest. "Not exactly," she confessed, her voice constricted. "It's been a terrible day. They're horrible, Nate. I'm unsure how much more I can endure." "Where are you?" he inquired, his tone becoming something more intense, protective. "At the workplace. Pinnacle. I'm 10 minutes away. Stay put." He ended the call before she could object. Rachel returned to her workstation, preparing for additional mockery. Jessica was there waiting, arms folded. "Back so soon? Thought you would have quit already." Mark and Lauren remained close by, smirking. Brian observed from his glass-walled office, clearly relishing the drama. Rachel sat down, remaining silent, her attention on her screen. She could sense the pressure mounting, a tempest ready to erupt. 9 minutes later, the elevator chimed. The workplace became quiet as Nathan Pierce emerged. All 6 feet and 2 inches of him emanating controlled rage. He dressed in a dark suit that spoke of wealth. His black hair swept backward, his expression determined. Heads rotated. Murmurs began. Jessica's mouth fell open, her gaze shifting between Nathan and Rachel. Mark stopped speaking mid-sentence. Lauren's device fell from her grasp, hitting the ground with a clatter. Nathan didn't look at anyone else. He approached Rachel's desk directly, his authority commanding the space. "Rachel," he said, his tone quiet but resonant. "Are you prepared to leave?" She gazed up, relief flooding through her. "Yes, just need a moment." She began collecting her belongings, her actions composed despite the turmoil around her. Jessica recovered first, forcing a false smile. "Mr. Pierce." "Hello, I'm Jessica Hayes, account executive. We weren't anticipating you today. May I assist you with anything?" She batted her eyelashes, unaware of the threat. Nathan disregarded her, his focus on Rachel. Then he turned, examining the room. "Who has been mistreating my spouse?" The term spouse struck like lightning. Jessica's smile disappeared. Mark gasped. Lauren grew pale, her device forgotten. Brian rushed from his office, adjusting his necktie, his face showing terror. "Your spouse?" Jessica stuttered, glancing at Rachel's plain sweater as if it were a puzzle she couldn't understand. "Correct," Nathan responded, his voice icy like steel. "Rachel Pierce, my spouse. I understand she's been treated terribly here. Would you care to clarify?" The room became silent as a cemetery. Rachel stood next to him, her beauty unmistakable now that everyone was truly observing. She didn't celebrate or smirk. She simply waited, her composure unbroken. Brian stepped forward, perspiring. "Mr. Pierce. Sir, I'm confident it's a misunderstanding. Rachel is a respected team member." "Respected?" Nathan interrupted. "She's been ridiculed, degraded, and given meaningless work by individuals who consider her inferior. Does that seem like respect to you?" Jessica attempted to retreat. "Yet we were unaware. I mean, she never mentioned, should she have to?" Nathan snapped. "She's here to work, not display our marriage, but you judged her regardless. You assumed she was worthless because she doesn't parade around in designer clothing. That's your fault." Mark opened his mouth, then closed it. Lauren stared at the ground, her social media aspirations crumbling. Brian wiped his forehead, mumbling apologies that seemed hollow. Nathan turned to Rachel. "Do you want to remain here, or are we finished?" She met his gaze, her voice gentle but resolute. "I'm finished." "Excellent." He faced the room again. "Here's the situation. Jessica Hayes, Mark Reynolds, Lauren Kim, Brian Foster, you're terminated. Immediately effective. Security is coming up to remove you, and don't consider applying elsewhere in this city. My reputation has influence, and I'll ensure every human resources department understands exactly why you're unemployed." Jessica gasped, grabbing her workstation. "You cannot do this." "I control the board that controls this organization," Nathan stated, his tone final. "I can do whatever I choose." Brian attempted to beg. "Sir, I've worked here 5 years." "Indeed, and you allowed this to occur on your watch," Nathan replied sharply. "You're finished." Jessica's expression contorted into a snarl as she lunged toward Rachel's workstation, slamming her palms down so forcefully the coffee cup shook. "You believe you're superior to us now, correct? Hiding behind your wealthy husband like a weakling." "We all recognized you were a fake," appearing in those shabby clothes, pretending to work diligently while we supported this place. Her voice escalated to a scream, saliva flying as she raved. I bet you mocked us secretly every time we ridiculed your miserable little existence. Mark participated, his eyes frantic with panic. Yes, she's deceptive. Probably used intimacy to secure that marriage. The accusations lingered in the atmosphere, cruel and unhinged, as the workplace watched in shock. Rachel remained motionless, her beauty striking against their nastiness, but the pain of their falsehoods cut more deeply than before. Nathan moved forward, his presence an unshakable barrier of calm, and lifted a single hand to quiet the room. Stop. You don't get to revise the narrative because you're frightened. My spouse didn't need to prove anything to you. She's intelligent, compassionate, and worth more than every person in this building combined. You mocked her for months, believing she was vulnerable. But observe her now, standing proud while you collapse. He turned to Rachel, his voice becoming tender with pride. You don't need to speak, darling. They're finished. Rachel met his gaze, her brown eyes shining, and gave a small, steady nod. The security personnel moved in like phantoms, removing the screaming quartet as Nathan's words resonated. You'll never find employment again. Not here, not anywhere. That's the consequence of opposing her. The elevator chimed once more and 2 security officers emerged, their expressions blank. Jessica began weeping. Mark swore quietly. Lauren hurried to gather her belongings, while Brian simply stood there, defeated. The remaining office observed in shocked silence as the 4 were escorted out, their careers destroyed. Nathan took Rachel's hand, his touch tender despite the storm he had created. Let's go home, he said. She nodded, taking her handbag. As they walked to the elevator, she looked back once, not at her tormentors, but at the co-workers who had remained silent. Her eyes contained no fury, just a quiet power that remained long after the doors shut. The workplace buzzed for weeks afterward. Tales circulated about the humble woman who had been married to Nathan Pierce, the millionaire who had constructed Pierce Enterprises from nothing into an industrial giant. Jessica attempted to repair her reputation with an emotional LinkedIn update, but nobody believed it. Mark struggled between menial jobs, his confidence gone. Lauren erased her social media presence, her followers abandoning her. Brian vanished from the field completely, a shadow of his previous self. Rachel didn't return to Pinnacle. She didn't have to. She began working independently, utilizing her abilities to assist small companies in expanding while remaining faithful to her modest origins. Nathan supported her, proud of the woman who had never allowed the world to transform her. One Friday night, as they relaxed on their penthouse terrace overlooking the Chicago cityscape, Rachel rested against him, her sweater replaced with a comfortable pullover. You didn't need to ruin them, she said, her voice quiet. They ruined themselves, Nathan responded, kissing her head. I simply ensured they experienced the consequences. She smiled, her brown eyes reflecting the city illumination. She had encountered humanity's worst and emerged more resilient, not because of his fortune, but because of her character, and that was sufficient. Hey, if this story resonated with you, please hit that approval button, share it with your companions, leave a comment below, and follow our YouTube channel for more stories of justice and compassion. Thank you for watching.